very afraid this past week while I was trying to read and not able to read, putting down books left, right, and center, that this new medication had stripped away all of the enjoyment of reading. And that would have been a hard stop. I love to read. I will continue to love to read. Thank you very much. So I've spent the week bouncing back and forth between books, putting them down, picking them up, so on and so forth. But I decided yesterday that I was going to pick up a book that I know that I liked the first time around. The book that I decided to pick up is The Ruin of Kings by Jenn Lyons, and I have spoken about this book before, and I will probably talk to you about it again. I'm currently reading it, and I still love it. I am so relieved. I can't tell you how relieved. Now, the sequel to this book comes out on Tuesday, so I want to get through all 27 hours before then. I'm already about 5 hours into the book, so it's not going to be my main focus over the weekend. I feel like I'm going to just binge it on Monday and Tuesday. I have the next book pre-ordered, so I kind of want to jump right in and have it really fresh in my mind. So The Ruin of Kings is a high fantasy, and I think that the shining moment of this book is the style that it's written in, because it's written as though it's evidence being presented to a queen about this one event that happens at the end of the book. So it starts really early. It begins with this preface from the guy who compiled all of this information, and then most of the book happens to be this conversation between Kieran, who is currently in a prison cell awaiting to be served up to a demon, basically, and his jailer, who is this monster-type creature who can devour the memories of people that she physically eats and then turn into them physically. And I really loved the way that this is written, because it's written in two timelines where she wants Kieran to tell his story because she's bored. And he's like, well, you know my story because you can read my mind. But she's like, tell me anyway. So he begins when he's being sold as a slave to this Black Brotherhood, which is this guild of assassins. And his life kind of starts from there. And she's like, no, that's the wrong place to start. And she begins 6 months prior to that, when he steals something from this supposedly empty house that isn't empty, and gets the attention of some very bad people, which in a roundabout way leads to him being sold as a slave. So the book is told in first-person point of view from his story, and then in third-person point of view from the points of view of everybody that she has devoured in his life and all of their memories. And it's really, really interesting. I found it really fast-paced the first time around, and I'm really absorbed in this book again the second time around. And so I am very much looking forward to reading it all the way through and moving on to book 2 in the series. But this weekend, I want to kind of focus on something else. It's the last weekend of October, so I wanted something a little bit different. I won't say spooky because I am choosing a nonfiction, and it's not a true crime or anything like that. I picked up a book on sale. It's called The Butchering Art by Lindsey Fitzharris, and it is about surgery in the 1800s. And that is a subject that fascinates me endlessly, so I want to read that book cover to cover this weekend. So it's going to be a great weekend. I can feel it already. Let's rock this reading weekend. In a row up in the loft. I know, right? These meds are great. So last night I read a little bit of The Butchering Art by Lindsey Fitzharris, and I didn't get very far in. First of all, because I really wanted to keep reading The Ruin of Kings. I know I've read it before, but Here's the thing about The Ruin of Kings. The way that it's written with the two timelines, often it'll end one timeline and switch to the other one on a cliffhanger, so I just have to keep reading so that I know what happens next in the story. I know that the author probably planned it that way, but it works really, really well. The other thing about this reread is that I'm absorbing a lot more of the world building. On first read, I didn't really think that the world building was much special. I didn't think that it was flat or anything like that, but it was there to support the style of the story, which is why I loved it so much. But on this reread, I'm really finding that I'm noticing these little details that on the first read through I didn't notice. That's why I love rereading books, because I always notice a little bit more each time I reread them. So favorite books, I read a lot. And I feel like this one is definitely a favorite. I did switch to the butchering art for a little bit. I started reading the prologue, which is basically just setting up the book itself and telling me mostly things that I already knew, based on the fact that I knew who Joseph Lister is. Joseph Lister was a surgeon in the 1800s, and he was a showman. Back then, I don't know, looking at medical surgeries was like as big a thing as going to the theater. It was entertainment, and there was nothing to knock you out. So there was a lot of screaming. And basically, good doctors were ones that could perform the surgery as quick as possible. And Joseph Lister had a reputation for being able to do like a leg amputation in under 3 minutes, which to the patient is fantastic. But like I said, he's also a showman. These auditoriums were set up so that like the stage was in the middle, surrounded by these stands that were filled with people, sometimes so much filled in this auditorium that they had to be pushed back to give the surgeon enough room to do the surgery. Joseph Lister in particular was such a showman that he would be like, time me, and then he would start. Joseph Lister is also famous for having a 300% mortality rate in one of his surgeries. Yeah, think about that. Not only did he kill the patient that he was operating on, a leg amputation that got gangrene and the patient died, he also cut off one of the fingers of his assistant holding the leg in place, which gave him gangrene and he died. And at one point, he'd done such a flourish with his scalpel that it came so close to cutting into somebody that they had a heart attack and died. 3 deaths, 1 surgery. So in the 1800s, it was actually preferable to be operated on at home if you could afford it than in a hospital, because it was not clean in any way, shape, or form. It was recommended that doctors clean their tools and their aprons and their gloves and their hands between surgeries so that they didn't show the grisliness of the profession, but they didn't. Having a lot of blood on your apron was like a sign of a good surgeon or something. It was gross. So there was a lot of infection and a lot of death. And basically you did not have surgery unless it was a life or death situation. So I'm really looking forward to learning more about Joseph Lister and more about this era of surgery. I took a lot of notes last night. I love this about the nonfiction books that I like to read. I often take notes, especially considering that it is in the 1800s, which is my era when I'm writing. So I'm soaking up these ideas for maybe a book coming up. Hi, baby. So today we are having our kickoff party for National Novel Writing Month. I am the ML this year, or one of them, in my region, and we are getting together at my house. We're gonna have some pizza, we're gonna talk about books, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm actually feeling pretty good today, and it's gonna be a good day. I can sense it. It's gonna be a good day. But I may not get all that much time to read, and if I do, am I really going to choose the butchering art over the Ruin of Kings? That is the question. That is the question. Yesterday was taken up with kickoff party goodness, and today I spent the bulk of my time at my sister's baby shower. I had a lot of fun and games, but not so much reading time. Filming with a dog. Okay, I'll rub you with one hand and film at the same time. So between those two events, I've had a very busy weekend and not so much time to read. I have a lot left of the book I meant to read this weekend. I have basically 11 chapters or I think 7 hours left in the butchering art. And although I'm enjoying it immensely, it's a book that I want to take notes on, which makes it even longer whenever I'm listening to it. So I can guarantee that I will not finish it tonight. It's already, 6:45. So, although I do plan on reading tonight, I think it's going to be The Ruin of Kings just because I don't really have the wrists to be writing down notes exactly. But let me tell you, I am so much enjoying the butchering art. I cannot wait to continue reading it. And I sincerely hope that by the time I do my wrap-up video, I will have finished that book. And The Ruin of Kings. And the sequel, The Name of All Things. I'm very ambitious in the near future. So I hope you had a wonderful weekend. I hope you've been reading something great. Feel free to leave me a comment and let me know what that is and whether I should read it. And I look forward to filming another reading vlog next weekend. Until next time, happy reading. You gonna say goodbye, babes?